We have learned a lesson other African states had learned the hard way, which is that usually 20 years or so after formal decolonization, the dreams that carried the liberation struggle, those dreams begin to dissipate. And societies find themselves in a position where either they have to reanimate those dreams and move to a superior phase of transformation, or they enter a very serious crisis. I call it a Fanonian moment, when there is a collision between what hasn't been done and what needs to be done, and it needs to be done now.
Increments down! Down! Free education forward!
I can remember my parents having to struggle to pay fees. We call ourselves the frustrated middle class, you know, that you don't qualify for a NSFAS loan because your parents are in what seems to be good jobs. Those fees are like a salary or a quarter of their salary, you know what I'm saying? So it takes a lot of strain, especially if you're not the only kid. So there's you, and then there's like 3 other people coming below you that still have to pay for other forms of school fees and sports and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? So the support for me, it was there, but it came with a struggle, you know what I'm saying? So I can only imagine for someone who had less than me.
Even before the Rose Must Fall, there were several so-called bush colleges who've been pushing this mission before it became so-called mainstream. By end of October in 2015, the question of free education was already tabled, and the question of engagement, concerted engagement and concrete commitment were called for. The demand from the universities is that the VCs must join in this call and demand for free, quality, decolonized education.
Blyden is the first person, I think, to whom we can trace the idea of African university. In the 1860s, he says we don't want a transplanted university, a university transplanted from Europe into Africa. He was worried that the textbooks which were existing and written by Europeans by then, and even today, they always presented the African as a barbarian. To him, the education which was supposed to be provided by a university was education which was African in content. That type of a university will not actually lead to what we call today alienation.
A lot of black students don't see reflections of themselves within the education system itself. So you don't see the things that you learn or the things that you and the ways that you communicate when you're at home are not the same when you're here. So now I give out because and I can't speak Sesotho because I'm here, you know what I'm saying? And if I can't and the medium of languages is English, and it's not just about language, but it's about other things that you don't see reflections of in the education system. They don't reflect the things that you have to learn outside of the system itself, let alone blackness. This institution is quite backwards in terms of the way that people live outside of it. So I think those are quite important things to consider, and I feel for me it's like an ongoing, I don't want to call it a struggle, but it is a struggle, an ongoing struggle to have to deal with the marginalization of black people in this country. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling.
We have had our sisters and brothers in NMU being shot at. We have been tear gassed. We have been pepper sprayed by private security entering our campuses. We have had white men point knives and guns at us in our institutions. We have had to deal with institutions who see that now we have shut their institutions down. They want to bar us from buses so that we constantly have to walk from Parktown to Bronx, thinking we'll be demoralized. We have had to clean our own toilets on campus. We have had to mop our own floors on campus. Our network is down. UP's network is down. The internet is down. So that we don't narrate the story. We don't narrate the true story of what is happening in our institutions of higher learning. They have seen the power of social media and revolutions that can run on social media, and they want to stop that from happening. But we are saying as a generation that is supposedly lost and born free, that we are alive, and we are radical, and we are ready to take it to the streets. A revolution has been coming the whole year, from roads must fall, to open Stellenbosch, to decolonize bits, and now we're seeing things must fall.
It's no more about like the collective effort. Like I feel like we're being used as pawns to push other agendas that other people might have, because people are making careers out of this, whereas some people are struggling, like for real, you know. It's not just a thing. And yeah, I mean, like I'm for the cause. Like last year I was in the front line, but like this year I'm kind of like, yeah, this year I'm kind of questioning it, but I'm still there, but not fully, you know.
There's a certain type of student an academic who can pay for university, right? Who was an academic during apartheid and post-apartheid. So they've had no sort of discomfort, right? Who's had black children come into their class who come from underprivileged schools, but still teaches in the same techniques that acknowledge a particular type of student who can grasp certain concepts, who can grasp certain levels of language and teaching, who can say, go back to school because education is important, with some sort of abstract intellectual argument, when students are bleeding, dying, starving, being brutalized on the ground. And that's a point of privilege that I think black academics, because of their precarity as black academics, can acknowledge and sympathize and be supportive of black students' claim, because we don't have that same type of convenient amnesia that disregards what it means to go back to school in instances of normalized violence.
Being on campus right now, especially since school's supposed to be back on, is kind of a joke for me, because a lot of the stuff that's happening on campuses doesn't give for a conducive working space or conducive learning area. So the fact that police are hunting people down, as a black female and someone who might look suspicious, I'm very uncomfortable with the cops being on campus. I'm very uncomfortable with the cops in general, wherever I am in this country. So to have them in a space where I'm supposed to be able to learn and stuff is pretty messed up for me, because irregardless of what you're doing, whether you're protesting or not, if you are caught walking past, you could be shot, you could be harassed, you know. And even if you are protesting, why do the cops have to take it this far? And I feel that the fact that management has gotten this far to protect its own interests really shows us like the nature of this country and what we have to deal with.
It's not because we quote-unquote defeated apartheid that the culture of authoritarianism and commandment has disappeared. It hasn't. It's a culture that has always been very paternalistic. You have usually a class of men who believe that they know what should be done, how it should be done, and who teach it to their children. Children being literal children, but also women, all those social categories that do not have the kind of masculine phallic power that is all over the place.
I know a student of mine whose home is in Swaziland. And of course the university has used the violence of threatening to close down the residences. So those kind of students are caught in between this lack of consensus and lack of communication from the 11th floor down here. So to get a university that is threatening to close down residences that are occupied by majority black students who probably do not have anywhere to go should these residences go, demonstrate the level of intimidation that is coming because of lack of being on the ground and understanding and feeling through one's skin the very pain that this very protest is about, the exclusion, you know.
One of the things that I think about is how we even engage regional bodies in the struggle for fees must fall, because as a student coming from Swaziland, I have to pay upfront almost everything, including medical aid that I don't normally have at home, but when I come here and register events, I'm required to have medical aid, which is an additional cost and expense for parents. So as we look into the local fees must fall movement and how we as a black people need to move beyond where we are, I humbly request that we look at the bigger picture of where this movement could go if as an African people we move together and always be at a level of awareness of what's happening in other countries and what requirements are made of people outside of South Africa.
I agree with the protest, I agree with the goal. I think it's the good thing that students strike for their rights. And actually it's very interesting for me because in France, in my university, there were fee rising last year, but nobody protested because also we have a different system where you have progressive fees. So if you are wealthier, you pay more. So it's maybe more fair. But also during all this month of protesting, what was very interesting for me was to see how all this movement organized itself. And I don't know, like somehow it gave me hope to see what was happening in this South African youth movement. And I felt like it gave me even more energy to do some things in France and to change things. Thinking like, even though, okay, maybe it's not the best way because it's violent, because it seems to be a deadlock right now, I don't know how it will end up. So maybe it's not the best way to shut down, maybe there are other ways, I really don't know.
I don't believe we need to shut down universities. If indeed we need to shut them down, we have to ask who has the right to make that decision. Who is going to lose if we shut down universities? To what extent? And how do we compensate those who will lose the most? How do we compensate them for the losses they will incur when we use that instrument, which is shutting down universities?
Revolution is consequences, you know. So even if like we don't even go to school for 2 years, it's like for the future, you know. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know I said I'm questioning the movement, but it doesn't mean that I'm not part of it.
Right.
You know, it's just different perspectives to one thing and how to move forward, you know. Yeah.
The students are proclaiming loudly and openly to the world that we are also human beings. As human beings who are born into a valid knowledge, as people who are born into a valid knowledge, we want that knowledge to be at the center of the university. That's one. Two, because we are human beings with a language, we want our languages to be at the center of the university. Three, because of dismemberment, dehumanization, infantilization, colonization, dispossession, we think that it is high time that there is something called social justice or cognitive justice, meaning that we turn upside down the epistemicide and the linguicides in order to remember us back into humanity. And the whole process, rehumanization of the dehumanized.
you.